Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ango Show. We are live. It is April 16, 2025. Excuse that echo for a second. That was my little botch, but it's all good. I'm here joined by Phil and Billy. Silly Billy and Big Bill Phil. Welcome back, fellas.
I like it.
What's up? What's up?
What's up? What's up?
How
What's
are
up?
you guys? What's going on?
Wonderful, doing wonderful. I'm going to throw on my hat because my buzz cut looking like shit today, and it's all good.
Oh no, not that.
Bad hair day when you don't do. I don't even want to talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen,
Can't have that.
ladies and gentlemen, we had NXT last night, and obviously we have a massive weekend ahead of us. So I figure we'll do our stand and deliver predictions today. We'll talk about stand and deliver. Also, there's a lot of talks about New Japan basically dying at this point. So I do want to talk a little bit about that. You know, it's just a really interesting week for professional wrestling, being that it's WrestleMania week. And so much stuff happening, so much stuff going on, so many things across all these companies. So we'll see how long this one goes. I don't know. If you guys want to support the show, I highly recommend that you guys drop a super chat to keep the conversation moving forward. We'll read everything, answer anything. We want to see your guys' predictions, all that good stuff. So I am super excited about it. First and foremost, fellas, did you guys watch NXT last night? And if you did, what did you think?
We watched it together.
I know, that was the point. Ladies and gentlemen, Billy and Phil have been doing watch-alongs together now. Look at that. They're blossoming like a beautiful flower, coming together, and just, wow, it's incredible. So you guys watched NXT, obviously. What did you guys think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Phil, I'll let you go.
I thought it was a fine show for what it was. I think when it comes down to this weekend's festivities of both Stand and Deliver and WrestleMania, people do kind of want to just get to WrestleMania to see what's all the hype about and everything. But I think WrestleMania and what NXT did for Stand and Deliver, I thought they did a very good show for what was needed to be built up next. I mean, we had two of the qualifying matches for the NXT Women's Championship ladder match. Now that match is secured. That match and everybody is secured for that match. We had a return on NXT, which was fantastic as well. And, you know, they just cleaned some things up a bit. And now we are here for Stand and Deliver. So I'm very much looking forward to the show.
Yeah, no, I'm going to follow up there a little bit. I thought NXT was pretty exciting. I thought the Dark State thing was awesome. I'm very interested in that. As everybody knows, I predicted something last week on our show, and it looks like I still have a chance for that to come to fruition. On top of that, you know, Javon Evans, Obafemi, Trick Williams, that's starting to gain some hype. I thought the show did really well for me. I think I gave it an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I can't remember, but overall, like I said it in the watch along yesterday. You know, NXT and Ango, you've been a person who's really stressed this, and now people are just starting to catch on and notice. But when it comes to continuity and the way things are put together on NXT, top to bottom, it is the best show. It has some flaws, and not afraid to critique the flaws. But I think continuity-wise and the way things flow and stuff like that, NXT hands down is the best WWE show that there is, in my personal opinion. We obviously seen the Roxanne Perez thing, which I can imagine we're going to talk about here today, and how that's a little rocky. But overall, dude, thought the show was great.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's interesting too because with NXT, the continuity, especially in storytelling, is just so good. They really I don't know what it is about Shawn Michaels and WWE really understanding it, but more so in NXT, I feel like the continuity is just really great. And you know, one of my main takeaways from last night's NXT was the fact that we saw Dark State and D'Angelo family like go a little bit crazy outside, you know, and then if you pay attention to the facial expressions of Stacks, Billy, your theory might be coming true, and we'll talk about that theory again today to remind those of who may have not seen it or heard of it.
We'll follow back up on it
for sure. The parking lot thing was definitely my takeaway, and Tolino Channel actually kicks things off today with 100 rupee super chat, and he says parking lot was like Gen Z Raw is War. 6-man tag is okay, but I think it's the aftermath of tag match that will be interesting. I think right now the big thing for NXT, especially if you look at Stand and Deliver, I think that it's like what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches. And
Yep, 7 matches total.
yeah, 7 matches total. One of them is obviously on the pre-show. But I will say, for a 7-match card, I feel like the one thing I really care about more about this pay-per-view is actually what follows. Regardless of the decisions that make, I think I'm more intrigued to see how they follow up with it, because this is a card, and we saw yesterday, like Ethan Page now versus Ricky Saints is confirmed, right? Like, that's an interesting matchup. How do they follow up with Ricky Saints after, win or lose, right? But I liked NXT, man. I genuinely thought NXT was enjoyable to watch, and it's just such an easy watch at this point, where I think for 2 hours it's just such a nice wrestling show. I don't know. You get the good matches, you get the good stuff, you get a little bit of the cringeworthy stuff too, but everything does make sense. And then the other thing I was going to say too was Thea Hale returning. I don't know if anybody caught it, but this was this is where things were a little bit more interesting to me. Thea Hale's music. So
yes. We had a discussion in the live chat yesterday.
Okay, so
I noticed it right away that we had new music, new graphics for her. Honestly, new everything. I mean, the attitude with her being crazy still there, but I mean, she's back, and I love that.
But the music was somebody else's music.
Yeah, so the funny thing is, you have Thea Hale make her return at NXT, and her music hits, and it's like really good music. And you know it's not Def Rebel, because Def Rebel don't make good music.
Right.
And then I was listening to it, and I was like, man, I know this theme song. It was they had Eddie Edwards' theme song from TNA back when he was a babyface. So I don't know how
I know that was his.
Yeah, I don't know how they went about it. I don't know why they gave that to Thea Hale, but that was like a little interesting tidbit that I realized watching in real time. And I thought I was crazy for a second. And then I went on social media, and everybody's like, oh my God, it actually is Eddie Edwards' old theme song. So I don't know.
Yeah, I was getting tagged a bunch in Twitter about it. I was like, yo, is that like a thing? And I had to go look it up myself.
Yeah.
And sure shit, it was.
Pretty crazy to think that they did that with Thea Hale.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's been repackaged though. Now she's back, and she's gonna be in the North American Women's Championship ladder match. So we'll see what they do with Thea Hale. But now it looks like, and they obviously had her, interact with Andre Chase, but it looks like she is going to be on her own with her own identity, which is kind of exciting.
And I just want to follow up real quick on the Andre Chase thing. And, me and Phil talked about it last night, but we talk about continuity and that being like one of the big things that we drive home. They didn't necessarily have to do something backstage with Andre Chase, but they chose to, which made it that much better, and kind of giving that rub off like, hey, you didn't ruin everything for me. And she goes out there and she wins the match. Like, hopefully that gives Andre Chase motivation. Like, there's just so many different moving parts with storylines in NXT that I appreciate. And I appreciate them going back to that and touching up on that and letting that be like the quote unquote closure that we receive for Thea Hale to move on and do something great. And obviously we seen the repackage. It was beautiful, outstanding, amazing. They spoiled it before the commercial, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But overall, dude, the continuity is amazing.
Yeah, 100%. Seleno Channel followed up with another super chat for 100 rupees. He says, in the current generation of high-flying wrestlers, Gunther is a throwback old generation. Hank and Tank are also old school vibe. Zarya has Cross's TNA theme. I don't remember Karrion Kross, Killer Kross's TNA theme. Honestly, I don't remember it. But that's just because his Fall and Pray theme song is just always stuck in my head.
Oh, good.
So every time he gets like another weird theme song, or they did the thing with Final Testament, I just always think of Fall and Pray. So that's a cool little fun fact, I guess. Hank and Tank, guys. I don't know what it is about these guys, but I freaking love them.
Same. I love them. I think they're fantastic. And I think, honestly, I mean, we'll get into like predictions and everything with them, but these two, they remind me so much of I know this is probably going to be a weird comparison, and I get that it's probably not the best comparison to do, but you guys remember when Otis and Tucker were a thing, and Heavy Machinery, and how they were just so high energy, and they loved the crowd, and they were always into that crowd interaction. That's exactly what Hank and Tank remind me of, because Hank and Tank, yeah, sure, they're crazy. Yeah, sure, they might not have always been getting the wins and getting on the same page as of late. But ever since, the tag teams of Motor City Machine Guns and the Street Profits and many others have shown up in NXT to give them motivation to get them to where they should be and where they need to be, now you have them as the NXT Tag Team Championship #1 contenders. And you're going into Stand and Deliver against Fraxium, who is easily one of, if not the best tag team that they got in WWE, period. And now we are going to be seeing a fantastic tag match at Stand and Deliver. So I absolutely love them. They ran the gauntlet. As soon as they were #1, Billy and I looked at each other and we're like, yeah, no, these guys are running this. These guys are running through the whole thing. And they did. And now we get to see them on the grand stage of Stand and Deliver. So it's great.
Yeah, well, and it's cool too because a lot of people don't seem to remember Hank specifically when he was getting called in, to WWE. He was like the security guard, and they were like, you get a chance, and like it was cool to see his development, right? And you could actually tell what they are doing is they've really gotten over organically with the crowd. And I think what's really funny, Phil, your comparison to Heavy Machinery is such a good one, because Otis is a good wrestler and Tucker was a good wrestler, but like what really made them stand out was their charisma and their energy and their, it's like their aura. It's like they're fun. They're a fun act, and it's not too serious. I think Hank and Tank is like really, really fun to watch. Genuinely speaking, I look at these guys and I'm like, okay, I know they're a little bit green, but they are charismatic, and because they're charismatic, I think that shines through the TV and kind of spreads. And when you have that good energy you're watching, it's like you kind of do want to root for them. And I just want to correct Phil. Phil had said that Fraxium is the best tag team in WWE, period. I would actually go as far as saying as Fraxium is the best tag team in professional wrestling today.
That's fair.
I'm not saying this to ruffle some feathers in the chat, but I think when you look at Fraxium, their work rate and how consistently good they are in their tag team matches, I think they are better than the Young Bucks. I think they are better than DIY. I think they're better than Motor City Machine Guns. I think they're better than the Street Profits. I think they're better than the Hurt Syndicate. I think they're better than Private Party. I think this team has such a great ability to wrestle, yet still be entertaining, yet tell stories, yet come across as a true tag team. And the funny thing is, they're not a true tag team. It was a makeshift tag team that worked and it clicked. And the fact that they're just always competing at such a high quality rate and so frequently, they are the best tag team in 2025. And
yes.
I'm going to stand by that.
Yeah, so I'll agree with you. But what I will say is I just don't know how long they'll last, if that makes sense. I think they're too far apart now, and we kind of seen it last night with the, Nathan Frazier kind of not shaking Hank and Take's hands, but Axiom, coming out shaking their hands and stuff like that. So I don't know how long it lasts. If it lasts, I'd be surprised. I'd be happy if it lasts, by the way. I want to preface that I want to see Fraxium go up to the main roster together, but I can also see a world where WWE chooses to do it separately for both of them, considering they both had matches on SmackDown and stuff like that. So I can imagine they'll go up separately.
Yeah. I don't want to see them go up separately. I don't want to see them go up separately.
I don't either.
Agree.
I don't either. I want to preface that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They should be on the main roster together. And personally speaking, when you watch these guys, the thing that's been so unique about them is because they are a makeshift tag team, literally since their inception, they haven't always been on the same page, but they always figure it out. And I think that's kind of the thing from yesterday too is, okay, maybe they're not on the same page again, but that's okay. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of been part of their shtick, which makes it entertaining because you never know if they're going to split or not.
Right. This is true.
It's fine. That's what they always say. And then they're like, whenever they get into the ring, they do seem to be fine in the end, but I mean, who knows what could really go down in the grand scheme of it all.
Yeah. Hey Phil, can you do me a favor? Just a quick
Yep.
technical check because I'm looking at the meters here. When you go into Discord, can you go into your audio and video settings and just tell me what your mic input is?
Let me see. Um,
What does it
Hello?
show? Yeah, can you hear
Man,
me?
oh man.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, so what does it show as your mic input?
HyperX.
HyperX, okay. And does it show the meter being full?
The yeah, input volume, output
Okay,
volume,
cool.
everything's 100.
Okay, perfect. I was just making sure because I'm gonna turn you up on here because the meter is kind of going low. Sorry. I just want to
Yep.
make sure I was like correct in that sense. So I appreciate that. Sorry about that, guys. Just
Sorry
making
about that.
sure. Yeah, no, it's all good.
Technical issues happen every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, again, I was just making sure. Yeah, very good points, fellas. Toledo Channel dropping another 40 rupees. He says, will New Japan Pro Wrestling departures choose WWE or AEW now? So maybe we could talk about that before we go into the predictions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Today there was the news. I dropped it on my channel. I talked about it a little bit, but basically, New Japan Pro Wrestling came out and they said that Bushi and Naito are gone from the company. So as people may have now realized, TJP is no longer under contract. Naito is now done with New Japan. Bushi's now done with the company. There's rumors that Gabe Kidd could potentially be on his way out. There's David Finlay could potentially be on his way out. There's just been a lot of departures for New Japan, obviously, and it's hurting. It's hurting them. I wanna clarify something too. I didn't say Kota Ibushi. I'm just speaking of Bushi. So
Bushi, right.
I know some people in the
Yes,
chat are saying
yeah.
some people are thinking it's Kota. Kota is not. This is not who we're talking about. But my point that I'm making is that New Japan clearly has this this issue. They're not retaining talent. People are leaving. We know Jeff Cobb's on his way to WWE. It's, there's even a chance that we see him as soon as Sunday, right? There's this downhill trajectory with New Japan. Before we talk about WWE signing people or AEW signing people, I just want to get your guys' reaction to this news because the beloved New Japan Pro Wrestling brand is a sinking ship at this point. So,
Yeah.
Phil, you first, Billy, you follow, and yeah.
I never thought I'd ever see the day, and I said this on social media too. I never thought I'd see the day that we would see Naito leave New Japan. And, with how much of a popular guy he is over there, and just, the way that New Japan has gone, honestly, downhill ever since really kind of just the partnerships that have happened or just people leaving. It's really sad to see because, New Japan at the time when I was kind of just, getting into the groove of everything with friends that watched New Japan more often than what they did in WWE at the time or vice versa, people were really getting me into New Japan and really trying to see what New Japan can really be all about. And then all of a sudden just seeing how partnerships and people leaving is just completely downgraded the company. I feel bad for it because at the end of the day, it's another company that, that can be seized right before our very eyes. And I don't like that very much considering, the landscape of professional wrestling seems to be at a very good rate right now. I don't know. It's very strange to see, but it kind of just goes to show you that sometimes maybe partnerships can't always be the best thing. I mean, I really don't know at the grand scheme of it all because I really like New Japan. I just don't want to see it fall completely.
Yeah. Billy, what
All
about
right.
you?
So I'll just come out and say it. Hot take might piss a lot of people off. The AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling partnership obviously did nothing for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So let's start there. On top of that,
Hold on.
yeah.
You cut off.
I said I'm gonna. It's a hot take, but obviously the New Japan Pro Wrestling AEW partnership did absolutely nothing for New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Oh, I
Might
agree
piss
with
a lot
that.
of people off there.
No, I agree with that.
So let's start there, and let's move on to Naito leaving. Naito leaving is obviously a big deal. Now, where he goes, we don't know. We'll have a conversation about that when it happens. But the fact that he is gone from the company is actually insane, considering the history that he has with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And everything that is happening to New Japan Pro Wrestling, nobody could have predicted. I don't care who you are. I don't think at this moment in time you could have looked at New Japan Pro Wrestling, except seeing their talent leave and be like, oh, okay, well, they're a sinking ship. Prior to New Japan Pro Wrestling, before AEW ever existed, was the next place to wrestle after WWE. If you were one of your favorite, what's the word, indie darlings, right? So we're looking at the landscape here, and we're watching it completely change, right? Because with the existence of AEW, and I'm going to go out and say it, that this existence of AEW could be the reason why this is happening to New Japan Pro Wrestling. They no longer have the roster. A lot of people want to come wrestle in the States. They maybe don't want to work for WWE. They now have the option to go work with AEW. And, you know, we can go out and say it. Somebody like Will Ospreay, who went on an interview and he talked about, oh, well, you know, Tony fits my schedule. I'm able to live in London. I'm able to be home. I'm able to do all the things that I want to do. And I get to work in the States, which is where I've always wanted to wrestle. So, again, it's more of that as well. So, all in all, it sucks to see New Japan go through this, and obviously we've seen the tease of The Rock and whatever that is, we don't know. Just overall, really shitty to see what's happening in New Japan. They still have talent, and I think they're still going to float around no matter what. If they get bought, they get bought. At the end of the day, I think you have to look at that AEW partnership and kind of look at that, because if you remember at the time, so many people were like, oh, this is going to do wonders for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and now they're a sinking ship. So, Ango, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I think AEW absolutely killed New Japan Pro Wrestling. They poached their top stars. They took all their top stars. That's for sure. I think that's a given. I think with New Japan, you're losing Naito. You're losing, you're going to lose Bushi as well. Jeff Cobb's going to WWE. We don't know where any of these people are going to end up, but the reality is AEW and their partnership with New Japan never benefited New Japan. And not only did it not benefit New Japan, but the biggest problem is that AEW took what is valuable to New Japan and didn't do anything great with them. Like Okada came to AEW and he is cold as ice, so I really hate to say this, but like Tony Khan can send talent to New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's not going to help New Japan Pro Wrestling.
No, because sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not going to help. And the reality is this too. The biggest thing is a lot of people need to understand that money in North America is way bigger and better than it is in Japan. So you can't blame guys like Okada or Will Ospreay or like these guys who made a name for themselves in New Japan. You can't blame them for choosing AEW or WWE. Like that's just the reality. So naturally speaking, New Japan Pro Wrestling for years has kind of been on a downhill trajectory, but they can't live off the success of Bullet Club anymore. And because you can't live off the success and the momentum from the Bullet Club and your top stars are being poached, yeah, it might be time to like change direction. And listen, man, The Rock was wearing that New Japan shirt and some people think it was just a shot at Carl Anderson. I genuinely believe there is more to it. And even though New Japan and AEW just announced Forbidden Door, I can certainly tell you there is no value for Forbidden Door that New Japan could currently offer that makes me excited to watch this pay-per-view. If I'm NJPW, I do find ways to work with WWE long term just to see what we can do to be exciting, because WWE and New Japan would be much more interesting to watch than New Japan and AEW. Simple as that.
Yeah, very true.
I agree with that. The partnership with AEW is the root of all the problems, and now that we've seen what has transpired and what's coming to light, you can't not look at the partnership between New Japan and AEW and say that something was wrong right from the very word go.
Okay, when Jay White came from New Japan to AEW, he cooled off, right?
For sure.
Yep.
When Okada came from New Japan to AEW, he cooled off as well, right?
For sure.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There's no doubt about that.
No doubt about it, right? When Mercedes came back from New Japan, she cooled off too, didn't she?
For sure.
Yeah.
She was supposed to do big business too.
So what happened to AEW being
That's the word that everybody threw around.
Tony Khan fucking killed New Japan. That's it. Simple as that.
Boom, there you go. Say the quiet part loud.
Say the quiet part loud. That's what happened. I mean, I hate to say it, but let's just call it what it is. Let's be real about it. Like, I think I think that's the big thing. Nats fan says Kenny Omega never cooled off. I think you could make an argument that Kenny Omega definitely cooled off. He was the big act of AEW when he first got there. Kenny Omega right now is feuding with Okada in a storyline that sucks. Just
they're not even feuding. They're just looking at each other.
Yeah.
They just looked at each other. That's it. We haven't seen any progression ever since they stared at each other after the international championship retention from him. And
apparently me and Ango can look at each other and suddenly that's called feuding.
Dude, we're in a freaking war.
We're in a massive feud.
Yeah.
Massive feud.
Y'all been in a war for the longest time now.
You're starting to agitate me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's Kenny was really respected in New Japan. Okada was very respected in New Japan. Okada is not looked at as the same being in America, being under AEW, and the thing is, like, I'm not saying the grass is greener even in WWE. I think Shinsuke Nakamura in NXT was amazing. I think Nakamura on the main roster, especially in recent years, is nowhere close to what Shinsuke Nakamura was in Japan. So it's like,
right.
It's crazy to think about, but when you look at it from a different lens, I think it is very clear that New Japan has been basically just butchered. And I love David Finlay, but he's not going to save it. I love Gabe Kidd. He's not going to save it. You know, Tanahashi is no longer going to be doing this thing. His last match is Saturday. You know, it's a problem, man. It's a problem for New Japan. And, you know, I know New Japan was trying to do this alliance with a whole bunch of other companies in Japan. And it was like the alliance thing that they were building. I haven't seen anything really come from that. But, I think, you know, especially when you look at Toledo Channel Super Chat, like, will they choose AEW or WWE now? Yeah, I mean, realistically, I think most people in New Japan who want to do this full time and make a lot of money and be a big star, I think they will look at WWE or AEW. And some of those young lions who went to New Japan and were being trained and built up in their system, I think it's very, very beneficial for them to look at coming to America and saying, hey, I want to do this. You know, look at Katsuyori Shibata. Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, bro. Like, I was so happy to see him in AEW because there was talks of this guy never wrestling again, and he's been able to wrestle and do stuff in New Japan, and I really like him. But, like, I don't know. So these people have crossed over to America, and they crossed over to AEW specifically, and I just think it's been really bad to watch. So should they choose AEW or WWE? I mean, yeah, to be honest with you, Tony Khan and Triple H, they're going to offer the big money. But New Japan is not. To me, it's a sinking ship and it needs to be saved. And that sucks because I think historically speaking, New Japan has so much of a beautiful, rich history, and there's so much to love about New Japan. And when you look at New Japan in 2025 in its current state, it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
This is
a whole other different state.
Very tough.
Yeah,
very
it's a
tough.
very tough thing. So, shout out to Toledo Channel for the super chat. I saw Brian McHattie dropped one, so let me see if I could find that. I'm looking for it, but the chat is going off so fast. You guys are so fast in the chat. Brian McHattie, where's your super chat, buddy? I seen it somewhere. He dropped a $2 super chat. He says more inventory for the TK collection, possibly. Well, I mean, I think it's listen. I think Tony Khan is very, very big fan of New Japan. I think he's you know, obviously we know the respect that he has for their culture and their history and everything like that. But I think it's one. I listen. I think this is the problem, right? And I want to throw this out there because Trevon Womakis, he dropped a comment. He said, Ango, so question, people got mad when Triple H robbed the European wrestling scene from their top stars, but people are fine when Tony Khan doing the same thing when it comes to Japanese talent. So I kind of want to talk about this for a second. The wrestling scene in Japan is very different from the UK scene. There isn't a promotion in the UK that exists that has the history, the lineage, even the financial backing that New Japan had. Not that New Japan is like this massive business, but it's not an indie thing. The indie scene in the UK was killed when WWE did NXT UK, but all of those people that joined WWE from NXT UK were getting paid way more to be part of WWE than they were on the indie scene, right?
Yeah.
So that there is a difference.
Yep.
That you can't. It's not apples to apples when you compare it to Tony Khan signing top stars from New Japan. And then, like, part of it is blamed on Tony Khan, and part of it's blamed on New Japan not creating new stars and not, like, really knowing what to do with some of the talent they had. But to me, it's not apples to apples, but I think they're both responsible for the death of the wrestling scene in those areas.
Of course, they're the conglomerates.
Yeah.
You know, so when people... And this is something that I think we talked about many years ago with Vince McMahon. You know, people used to call him a monopoly, and he was trying to become that. And he wasn't trying to do it by actually going and getting these companies and bringing them in and helping them. He was literally trying to go out, grab all the talent that he possibly could, and completely demolish these companies and leave them in the dust. And you know, today, it's a little bit different, you know, because now we have a company like WWE who goes out and they create a partnership with TNA, which has obviously helped TNA grow in their own way. Now, here's the thing, is WWE, truthfully, at the end of the day, is always going to benefit more from that. The same way that AEW is always going to benefit more from a collaboration with New Japan Pro Wrestling, because New Japan Pro Wrestling is a sinking ship right now. So everything that happens with them, whether we love it, whether we hate it, AEW is always going to see that success, right? Same with WWE. Now, does a company like TNA see success? Absolutely, more than maybe they have in quite some time. At the end of the day, it's always about these bigger companies, and they're trying to feed their pockets more.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's not being talked about, honestly, is and this is kind of the thing too with the partnership between AEW and New Japan. We haven't seen New Japan benefit at all from this. We haven't heard,
and that's the kicker.
Right.
That's the kicker. Yeah, New Japan never benefited.
So it's crazy because they never benefited, but all it did was give people a taste, like from New Japan. Like Will Ospreay, for example, got a taste of what AEW was before he signed full time. So Will Ospreay had a little bit of a taste of TNA, and he had a little bit of a taste of AEW. Same with Okada. And so because they had a little bit of taste of that little taste, they're like, okay, well, that's pretty easy for them to say, well, hey, like we can get paid more money, and we can work a lesser schedule, like we can do this, you know. And so the reality is, you know, WWE has signed Jordan Grace from TNA, right? But it's strange, in a really strange situation, and I actually don't understand it at all. But TNA's metrics are up all across the board since working
because,
with WWE.
Like I said, TNA gained the benefits. TNA is they're reaping the reward, right? They are willing to offer somebody like Jordan Grace, right? And at the end of the day, somebody like Ethan Page is walking down there and challenging for the TNA World Championship. Do you know what I'm saying?
And he's probably not going to win.
No, he's probably not. But at the end of the day, you're getting WWE talent on TNA, which is obviously going to boost the metrics of TNA overall. Because here's the thing. Maybe I'm just the Ethan Page fan, right? And I want to know that everything Ethan Page is doing, well, okay, I know I can find him in TNA because they're telling me that, hey, you can find Ethan Page in TNA. We have this partnership with him. Like, there's numerous things that are just, they're working in TNA's favor. At the end of the day, AEW, number one, where they messed up, and you can also put some blame on New Japan Pro Wrestling, too. Neither of them knew how to market coming out of this. Again, we've talked about it numerous times. AEW's one of their biggest problems has always been marketing. And here is another example of how marketing has failed this company. And again, they have this Forbidden Door pay-per-view that when it first started was supposed to be this great thing for the industry, and at the end of the day has just completely been a dying ship. And it sucks because that was supposed to be something that was so special and so exciting, and it hasn't been that. I want to say since the first one, and even the first one, I can't even really remember it.
Yeah, the thing is, when it came down to the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, I was all for it because you were bringing two wrestling companies together. You're going to be doing some great matches and everything like that. But at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do with the Forbidden Door pay-per-view after so many iterations. And then it's like, at this point, what? This is like going to be how many Forbidden Doors this is going to be now? Like 4 or 5 at this point? And it's like, what else do we have left? Everybody that came over from New Japan at the first and second iteration are now over here in AEW. And that's really kind of what's the problem with all of this, is that, yeah, AEW did poach the talent from New Japan, and now they're known as AEW talent instead of New Japan talent, and now it's just
who's
a whole mess.
Who's John Moxley going to face? David Finlay?
And I mean, yeah, sure, that could be a match that some people could be interested in, but at the end of the day,
I don't care about it.
That's what I'm saying. Us here, we don't care about it because it's just not something that gravitates towards us. So there's only so much you can do with a Forbidden Door concept, and now you're really looking into this and be like, yeah, no, it's just not as interesting as it once was.
Yeah, I think you can make that argument. It's not as interesting, but also when the point of it is to work with the top stars from both companies, and then you know, it's not, you're not getting that, and like, you know, it just doesn't change my mind. I think AEW really, Tony Khan was supposed to be the saving grace and be this guy that like really propped up the entire industry, and he really hasn't. And there's stories that are out there that exist, and there's people that I've talked to have told me stories, but you know, it's once you get into the really in the weeds of the business, you really can only look out for your own company, and that's where I think Tony Khan is. You know, at the end of the day, if Okada's becoming a free agent and he's not going to go to New Japan, he doesn't want to stay there. Well, yeah, like it would be dumb if Tony Khan didn't sign him, you know, but then doing the Forbidden Door concept is pointless. And then the thing is, people are like, well, CMLL is involved. They're not announced for Forbidden Door. It's a New Japan AEW co-promoted show. They have Wrestle Dynasty, which has ROH and CMLL and all this stuff. But really, if you think about where AEW went wrong with it to make the partnerships better, was like if Okada signed, or if Will Ospreay signed, and all these guys that came from New Japan, Jay White, if they signed, then they should be able to work both shows. And I actually stand on that because that's an opinion that I have with WWE. Like, if you're going to sign the Jordan Grace, if you're going to sign some of those TNA talents, then either send them more talents or let them work both shows from time to time, because then it really makes sense when you do those pay-per-views. Or like, for example, Jordan Grace is a perfect example of this. Jordan Grace dropped the world championship to Masha Slamovich, and I love it. They did a great job with that. But if they wanted to sign Jordan Grace and keep the Impact Knockouts title, then they could have just featured the Impact Knockouts title, the TNA Knockouts title, more often on NXT programming. And that could have been something where NXT talent go for it or TNA talent go for it, you know? And you could see her on both shows until, okay, eventually you don't need to do that anymore. We got a couple more super chats. DJ dropped $4.99. He says, can you see NXT Japan happen if they partner with New Japan Pro Wrestling once they end their partnership with AEW? I don't think we see NXT Japan ever. I think years and years ago that was the plan. I don't think WWE will do that, but I think WWE will maintain those partnerships with companies like Pro Wrestling Noah. Yeah. I think it would be great if they had a partnership with New Japan. I don't think that will happen either, though. But you never know. Like I said, The Rock might be teasing something, and that's kind of hard to say what will happen there. But I do think that is a possibility. I think also for New Japan Pro Wrestling, if they had a partnership with WWE, you send AJ Styles out to Japan. You send, Shinsuke Nakamura out there, no problem. Mm-hmm. You can do a whole bunch of stuff with New Japan Pro Wrestling, Noah, WWE.
You let some of your top stars go out there and work, especially that have history there. And I think that's always where, just kind of following up on what you said, Ango, a minute ago, that's kind of where AEW messed up, is that they never allowed these top stars to go work in Japan as well and go do a bunch of stuff in Japan. I think if you create that partnership to keep the lineage, right? because as wrestling fans, I think us three in particular, we could sit here and maybe we don't watch it on a weekly basis or whatever, but we understand and we respect the lineage of what New Japan Pro Wrestling is. And I think if that's your goal at the end of the day, rather than just taking, you should be giving back as well.
Well, I like watching NJPW World. Like, I love their streaming app.
Yeah.
I think it's a great streaming app. I try to watch the events when I can. I pay enough attention to know what's going on. But I think obviously you have the time zone difference, which makes it really hard for fans in America to really cross over. Of course. So like thing is, if you're gonna have
that's me,
and I will give AEW props, for example, as much as I didn't like it and I thought it creatively it stunk. I thought when they sent Jack Perry out for an excursion,
yes, that was good.
Perfect example of hey, let them go out there, try this new character, try a different style. Maybe learn a couple things or two, come back, right? So WWE did this with Tavion Heights and Omos. They sent him to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that was not New Japan, excuse me, Pro Wrestling Noah. And
Noah, yep.
Tavion Heights came back, and I like after watching him in Noah, I was like, wow, this guy. It took me watching him go to Pro Wrestling Noah for me to see his potential. And he came back, and I'm like, this guy's going to be a good single star in the future. Eventually, he's going to break from No Quarter Catch Crew. He's going to be great. Omos, we don't know because we haven't seen him. But, like, you send these talents on an excursion, it lets you try a couple different things. And then, by the way, they're promoting your brand. They're your ambassador. Creatively, I thought what they did with Jack Perry stunk. But I respected the fact that they sent him out there because for Jack Perry, he's young, up and coming. Let him go get that experience. They try to do that thing. And I would like to see more of that in professional wrestling. So to answer the super chat, no, I don't think we see NXT Japan, but I do think we see if WWE to work with New Japan, you will see talent go out there, some talent from there come here, a talent exchange. And, in order for that partnership to work for WWE, you cannot poach all of the New Japan talent like AEW did. But what you could do is work heavily to feature their talent and have your talent featured there. And I think everybody, I think like even Brock Lesnar going to New Japan when he did back in the day, like there's benefits to talent doing that. It's a whole different style, and they respect the wrestling industry totally different than the Western cultures do. So that is something I want to point out. Brian McCaddy dropped a $5 super chat. He says the TNA product and talent are being exposed to a much larger audience that may have not known of them before. And so that is true, but the reason why TNA benefits from the partnership with WWE is because they are a wrestling TV show that airs every week on TV. And what ended up happening for TNA was they were having a hard time selling more than 100, 200 tickets to their events. Now we're at the stage where TNA is consistently doing 2 to 3K sellouts, and they're actually going to bigger venues. So this partnership with TNA and WWE is allowing WWE to use their talent, but also to sending their talent over there on their shows. Fatal Influence has been part of TNA and storylines. Ethan Page is now on TNA as part of a storyline. We saw Moose and Obafemi as part of a storyline. So what really works, and this is the difference, by the way, with the Japan situation, because TNA is on a weekly basis with WWE, they can synchronize together their stories that are being told on a weekly basis between NXT, right? New Japan doesn't have weekly episodic shows. It's not like they have their own version of Monday Night Raw every Monday at 8 p.m. so they can cross over into Dynamite. So there is a little bit of that disconnect. And I think that has to be spoken about too. And I think that's why it's a little bit harder for AEW to really help New Japan. But also, how do you have Konosuke Takeshita hold the never open weight championship belt or whatever? And now we're starting to see him actually bring the belt as part of his entrance. For a long time, it wasn't even acknowledged that he was a champion over there. Like, that's bullshit, bro. If WWE sent their talent to New Japan Pro Wrestling and they didn't acknowledge that he was champion and they didn't have him bring the belt, like I would laugh in their face. I'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It'd be taken as a joke.
When the partnership was just in its infancy, when it came down to TNA and WWE, when we saw the Knockouts Championship around the waist of the champion at that time as they were going into the Women's Royal Rumble, I mean, that right there just showed, and they And WWE was even talking about that being the Knockouts Women's Championship over in TNA, and how they're actually acknowledging these companies now instead of just not pretending that they don't exist. That's what you should be doing. And it's worked wonders for TNA ever since this partnership has come about.
Yeah, for sure.
Agreed.
I agreed. Shout out to Brian McCaddy for the super chat. Toledo channel dropping a super chat for 100 rupees. He says women's North American title match will be an arc for Zarya and Sol Ruka feud. Maybe both of them at the top of the ladder as the last two. Also Roxanne situation ? So we could start talking about stand and deliver. I think we should get into our predictions.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, why not start with the Women's North American Championship? This is a great match. I expect this match to be very, very fun. This is a match that I think I think NXT really has an opportunity to show the world something different here and make a new star. And I'm just going to throw this out there. I do think that Sol Ruka and Zarya feud could be really great. I do like their dynamic together. This match has Zarya, Kalani Jordan, Izzy Dame, Sol Ruka, Lola Vice, and Thea Hale. And I like the fact that, like, you know, Izzy Dame had that really, really bad botch last week. Lola Vice to me is kind of just, at one point I thought she was women's champion, like world women's champion worthy. And then obviously we saw that
floating.
She's kind of floating. But I think this is the time you pull the trigger and you give the belt to Zarya. And I think Zarya does walk out of this ladder match winning. I don't think she is going to be with Sol Ruka at the final two, though. I think what's going to end up happening is Sol Ruka and Zarya, they might tease a little bit of a breakup or something. But I think Sol Ruka will be just preoccupied and Zarya wins. But I actually think this would be the right call. I think Zarya should win the match. I think Zarya winning the match will easily propel her to a little bit more of a serious scenario where people will now look at her with a little bit more credibility, because she's kind of played third fiddle to Julia and Stephanie Vicker when all three of them came in. So this will kind of be her chance to shine. And that's why I would pick her. And I think she's going to be so great in this ladder match that, like, we're going to get some viral clips out of it. We're going to see a lot of viral moments from this match. And I do think Zarya is going to be at the forefront of them. Phil, who do you think's winning this match and why?
I think it comes down to both of those two for sure, and Sol Ruka and Zarya. I got Sol winning this thing. Now, for those that know me, you guys know I love Sol, but that's not the sole reason, no pun intended, why I have her win this match. I think you have Sol Ruka win this match, and you do the little bit of tension growing and building between Sol and Zarya, and you can have that kind of thing going to where we can see a possible Zarya heel turn to where she turns on Sol, goes after the NXT Women's North American Championship when they feud together, and you can do something and build something between those two for future WWE NXT PLEs, and just go through the motions of that once that is all said and done. So I do have Sol Ruka winning this, and we'll see where things go from there. But yeah, the feud between Zarya and Sol is definitely the right direction to go once the champion is crowned at Stand and Deliver.
Billy?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to take Thea Hale. And the reason why is because here I want to start by saying I hear what both of you are saying, whether it be Zarya, whether it be Sol Ruka. I think either of those picks are actually a great pick, but I do think there has to be a world where we have to get away from those two, and I don't think winning the championship and one holding the championship would be the best route. I think one costing for the championship would actually make for a better story, in my personal opinion. I'm not saying that's right or anything like that, and I think ultimately at the end of the day you can have somebody like Thea Hale who can really use this run to propel her and put her in front of this audience and kind of get her back on track, because she hasn't been seen on TV and things of that nature. I think she would be a perfect fit for the Women's North American Championship right now, and I think you could start creating some type of very deep, quote-unquote, blood feud right between Zarya and Sol Ruka and let that story tell itself. Just my opinion.
Interesting. So all three of us have different picks. I'm curious to see what the chat is thinking. So make sure you guys let us know as we continue to chat what you guys believe will be the case. Next match that I want to talk about on this list is the kickoff show match, the Women's Tag Team Championship #1 contenders match. So finally, the women's tag title belts could be coming back to NXT. It feels like they're never really involved in the mix. Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade versus Metaphor versus Fatal Influence versus Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley. And, you know, I think I know what's happened to Roxanne, ladies and gentlemen. I think I think the main roster, the reason why Roxanne's whole thing got dropped was because they want to call up Cora Jade as well. And until they have something specific for Roxanne to do as a singles girl on the main roster, this is the best way to call them up. So I actually believe Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez are winning this match. They will go on to the main roster and compete for the women's tag team title belts, and they'll both be on Raw or SmackDown, whatever it is. They'll be called up, and then eventually they'll split up and do their own thing as singles competitors. But I think WWE was trying to do these call-ups in a way where it's not oversaturated, and the best way to do that is Cora Jade and Roxanne tag teaming. So my prediction is very simple. Roxanne and Cora Jade walk out of Stand and Deliver as the number one contenders, and adios to NXT, onto the main roster. Billy, what's your thoughts?
I have the exact same thoughts, because I was actually going to say the exact same thing. It's wanting to call Cora Jade up. It's knowing that Cora Jade is somebody who is also ready. Roxanne obviously been ready. Both of them need to go up. They both deserve to go up. It's time. The best way to do so, with, like you said, without creating such a big thing here and spreading it around a bunch of people. You just put them in a tag team. You let them go up there. Let them be a tag team, whatever the case is. Then eventually split. Give me Cora Jade. Give me Roxanne Perez. They're going to be facing for the women's tag team championships on Tuesday.
Phil.
Agrees the crowd, but not in this realm, because I had the exact same thoughts. I think it's just making so much sense to do Cora and Roxanne as a pairing once again. And when we saw Cora make her return, I looked at Billy and I'm like, wait a minute, we're actually doing this pairing again? And we actually agreed that it was the best case scenario for the both of them. I have been wanting Roxanne Perez on this since Stand and Deliver last year, but then she won the Women's Championship of NXT from who was it? I believe who was the champion at the time? That was I don't know. Regardless, but regardless, I think the fact of the matter is you have these two go up to the main roster, go to the Women's Tag Team Championship title picture, and it just makes all the sense in the world. They're ready for the call-up. They've been ready for the call-up, and I think it just happens on, once they get those title shots.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Easy
peasy. Cool. Okay, then let's talk about it. Fraxium versus Hank and Tank, NXT Tag Team Championship match. I would like to go first, if that's okay, fellas.
Sure.
Easy peasy. Fraxium wins. Another little tease that they could be breaking up, but they don't. And then I think Fraxium gets confronted.
Oh.
I think they get confronted, but now who do they get confronted by? And I have a feeling it's going to be Motor City Machine Guns, but we'll see what happens. I think right now this is going to be a fun match, and then big pop for whoever confronts them. I think it just makes a lot of sense. Motor City Machine Guns. And yeah, simple as that. Phil, go ahead. Can you guys hear me, fellas?
My camera was frozen.
Okay, cool.
Yes, I can hear you. My camera was frozen for a second. So wait a minute. Let me hear you. Let me hear you one more time. You said that you were picking Fraxium to win.
Fraxium to win.
It cut off for me.
Yep, and then confronted by MCMG, baby.
Okay. I'm going the opposite route. I'm going with Hank and Tank.
No way.
I think I am. I you know what? I said this to Billy during our watch along that, with everything that's happened with Hank and Tank over the course of the last few weeks, and how Motor City Machine Guns and how Street Profits have shown up and they have gotten them to where they need to be motivation wise, and how they just ran through the entire gauntlet. I think you go all the way with these guys. I do. And I think with, Fraxium being as good as they are and seeing them beat the best tag team in the world today, and according to your words, I think it just makes all the sense in the world. You give them that moment in front of that massive crowd that they will have at the T-Mobile Arena, and I think you make it happen. So I'm going with Hank and Tank.
All right, Billy.
I'm actually going to agree with Phil. I think the safe bet here is go with Hank and Tank. Now, again, could easily be wrong, but I know we talk about wanting Fraxium to go up. I don't think there's any better way to have them go up than just let them lose the championships. You can also have them confronted still the same way and go, you could still bring Motor City Machine Guns in because we need a really good tag team feud over on SmackDown rather than just one. So if you want to just create more of that, you do it there. But yeah, I think Hank and Tank, you've done everything with them. You've had the Street Profits show up, Pretty Deadly, Motor City Machine Guns. Everybody's came in and they've all said these words about Hank and Tank, and finally they find themselves in for what? For them to lose? No, I don't think that's the case. I think you're allowed to have a really feel good moment here, and I think why not do this? You know what I'm saying? Give it to Hank and Tank. For Axiom, I am a believer. I am personally a believer. I know, Ango, your theory is it can be correct. But I think you could do something along the lines of even potentially having them split. I don't know if, again, I don't want that to happen, but there's just many routes that you can take after that.
Yeah, I don't want to see them split because if they win and they get confronted by Motor City Machine Guns, then boom, 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 you do a tag team championship match, multi-man match, do whatever the fuck you want match at WWE Backlash with Fraxium. So it could be a storyline that carries over because I do think Fraxium's in line for a call-up, and I do think that would be the reason for them to win is they can win, get called up, and then vacate the belts. And then you can do an open tag team gauntlet match or something for the championships for NXT at their next PLE or on TV, whatever you want.
I don't think there's really much left for Fraxium to do at this point in NXT. I mean, they've gone through everybody, basically, at this point. They've been the NXT Tag Team Champions for so long. I think you just give them the moment. I do. But we'll see.
It'll be interesting. I don't hate it, though. I definitely don't hate it. Definitely intrigued to see what they do here. We do got 2 super chats I got to read. Tolino Channel dropping 40 rupees. He says Julia versus Vicar equals Joe versus Nakamura on NXT. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. Perfect comparison. And then DJ dropping a $4.99. He says, I would love to see Cora and Perez with Raquel Rodriguez help Raquel get pushed feud with Liv Morgan. I don't know. I'm not opposed to them building like another faction with,
but
you know,
I don't think you have to do that.
You can always split. I mean, it's hard because I feel like with WrestleMania, I have my own predictions about Raquel and Liv and stuff like that. But so I wouldn't be opposed to this. I just don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think out of the other options I'm considering, it's not even one that I would consider. But I do like the idea of Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez feuding with Raquel and Liv. I like the idea of them feuding with a lot of people on the main roster. So I'll say that. I'll say that. I don't know. Do you guys agree, disagree?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. With how everything's kind of shaping up, I don't mind if they were to ever do rivalry / feud between those 2 tag teams. I just wish that, and I've been very vocal about saying this when it comes down to the women's tag team championships. I thought that when they abolished the NXT women's tag team championships, I thought that, you know, with how the WWE women's tag team titles are supposed to be, a cross promotion between all 3 brands of WWE and NXT, I thought we were finally going to go back to that. And now, you know, we're doing this fatal 4-way for the tag team titles shot, and I'm like, you have great tag teams for the women's division over in NXT. I just don't get why WWE doesn't involve these girls more often in the tag team title hunt. It might just be the way WWE operates at that point, but I think they're making a huge mistake by not doing this. So I'm glad they're actually doing the Fatal 4-Way tonight, or on Saturday, to do it, because it just makes all the sense in the world to bring these girls in.
Yeah. Brian McCaddy followed up with that super chat, and he dropped a $5 super chat saying putting Roxanne with any group of more than 2 would just dilute her and cool her off more than necessary. So I do agree with that. That's for fair. Sure. I definitely agree with that. But I do think if you do the right pairing, so somebody who hasn't necessarily broken into like being a major singles competitor on the main roster, I think it could work.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say this, and there's only one example that I think really shines, was with Damage Control. Bailey was always the one talked about the least when it came to the Four Horsewomen. When she became the leader of Damage Control, everybody benefited. Dakota, Io, Asuka, like they all benefited from it, but it really benefited Bailey as well. And then it actually benefited Io breaking away from the group long term. So I just kind of want to point that out where, yes, I agree with Brian, but if you find the right person to do this with, it could
You can
work.
make it work.
You could make it work. I think Damage Control was a perfect example of how you can make it work. But you have to have the right vision, and it has to be with somebody who hasn't necessarily reached that point yet. Because there is ways to benefit from it. So I just want to point that out. I definitely agree. I do think Roxanne will cool off significantly, but if you put her and Cora with the right person, I don't think that's a concern. The only thing is, coming to the top of my mind at this exact moment, yeah, I do think that's kind of a difficult thing to say, okay, who do they put them with?
Right.
I don't know if Raquel is that person, you know. But I just say, in general, there is an opportunity to do something cool if you want.
Right.
And who knows if they were to do it. I don't think they'll even consider it, to be honest. I think Cora and Roxanne together will be the thing that they do.
And I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brian McCaddy for the $5 super chat. Appreciate you, brother. Next match on the card that we're going to talk about, Ricky Saints versus Ethan Page. This is the one that makes it so difficult for me to predict because WWE did one thing. A lot of people are saying, oh, the road to WrestleMania was boring. But all these random title changes that we got before Stand and Deliver and WrestleMania was a very unique twist. And I think Ricky getting the belt off of Shawn Spears was random and shocking to me. So I'm going to pick Ricky Saints because I do think he needs to retain. I don't know what else happens here. I would like to see them start off another feud for Ricky. Maybe somebody debuts or somebody, you know, we got people in the Performance Center who might be ready for a debut. Maybe have somebody go after Ricky here. I don't know. But I'm going to pick Ricky Saints, Ethan Page off to the main roster. This is his final send-off. Phil, go ahead.
I agree with your sentiments completely. I think there's more time for Ricky Saints to have as the NXT North American champion, and I think Ethan Page is just ready for the main roster at this point. So I think it's just mainly a made decision to have Ricky just retain the NXT North American Championship, put Ethan on, let's say, the Friday Night SmackDown brand, for example. They can put him on whatever brand he wants to go to or whatever they, choose to see fit. But I think it's just time for Ethan Page to get up to the main roster and have Ricky Saints go over to whatever type of feud they want to see him go through next. So, I mean, it's just Ricky Saints for me.
Billy?
Yeah, it feels very easy. Ricky Saints, let Ethan Page go up. After that, whatever happens. I think Ricky, him and Ethan Page are technically going to have the same run in NXT, in my opinion. It's going to be, they're going to look very similar. So, yeah, give me Ricky Saints here. Let somebody go attack him or do something along those lines at the end of the match. And, yeah, Ethan Page, send him up.
Cool. Stephanie Vaquer versus Julia versus Jada Parker versus Jordan Grace for the NXT Women's Championship. This is hard.
This one's tough.
This one might be the toughest one of them all.
I'm going to say it.
Go ahead.
Stephanie Vaquer retains.
Okay.
I think Julia fully cements herself as a heel.
Okay.
I think Stephanie wins and retains. I think she gets a little bit of a lengthy reign. And then we'll see what happens.
Okay. I'm playing with house money. I'm gonna be honest. I'm playing with real house money here. I'm going with Jada Parker.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
I said this last night.
I'm picking Jada Parker here. I think she has been one of the more developed talents. She is obviously a homegrown talent for WWE. Obviously, WWE sees something in her. They see that she can obviously hold the fort down. I love the work that she's done. I'm not gonna lie to you. That vignette yesterday sold the hell out of me. So much so that I was sitting there like almost in tears. You know, she was talking about her uncle and stuff like that. So I think this is a personal thing too. You know, being able to connect on a personal level, but also understanding that she is somebody that WWE obviously sees something in. And yeah, I'm gonna play with house money here and take Jada Parker.
Phil?
I'm gonna pull the trigger. I'm gonna say Jordan Grace. I think you do it. Nothing against Stephanie Vaquer, and Stephanie Vaquer can retain the women's championship. I really don't think you can even really have a wrong answer when it comes down to this fatal 4-way because of how good all four of these women are. But I think WWE pulls the trigger. I think they do Jordan Grace and have her win the NXT Women's Championship. And we'll see how things play out. I still think there's something there between Jordan and Jada, so maybe you can still do something there between those two ladies. Stephanie and Julia, I do believe that you're right in a sense, Ango, to where Julia does cement herself as a heel. And we'll see where Stephanie goes from there. So I'm going with Jordan to win the title.
I will say, I want to point this out in response to both of you. I think you can't go wrong with any one of the four, for sure. So I will say that for sure. I don't think there's a wrong answer here. What I will say is if you have Jordan win, Stephanie and Julia can have one feud and then go to the main roster if you want. It just depends on what they want to do with these call-ups. Honestly, all four of them are ready for the main roster. I think even Jada is. But I think Jada will be the one that sticks around. So I'm not opposed to any of these. I just think Stephanie's going to end up winning. But what would be really cool is if Julia completely snaps on Stephanie, then that opens the floodgates for Jada or Jordan to win, which would be kind of a unique booking decision. For sure. Not opposed to it. I think it's a very hard task to predict that, but definitely a fun one. It's going to be a fun match. And shout out to Jada Parker, who is really just developing and getting over and just really killing it.
Man, I'm not even kidding you. That vignette last night sold the shit out of me. I mean this wholeheartedly. I don't know what it was.
I saw his reaction and I'm like, yeah, no, they sold you hard.
That's why
Jada Parker.
That's why video packages and vignettes and stuff matter though, because I think a lot of people
so important.
Like it lets you connect with people and like I didn't see your guys' watch along in full, you know. So being that I didn't watch it all, I didn't know what your reaction was, but I personally thought the video packages were great for all four of them.
Four of them, yeah.
But what's really cool is how
a real side of them.
Yes, and it shows you
they did the same thing. Oh, sorry, then go.
Go ahead.
They did the same thing when it came down to. I mean, we saw on Monday Night Raw how they did the video packages for all of the three women for the Women's World Championship Triple Threat on Monday Night Raw with Rhea, Bianca, and...
Oh,
Phil, we can't hear you.
Yeah, Phil, you cut out.
Okay, we cannot hear Phil.
And Io. There's in so many ways.
We couldn't hear you. You completely cut out.
Yeah, you completely cut out there, Phil.
Okay?
Now I can hear you.
Yeah, now you're better.
Okay. I was saying that they were basically doing the exact same formula that they did for Monday Night Raw's Triple Threat for the Women's World title, and how there's pretty much nothing left to do at this point, just have them make their final statements and go to the match. That's what they did here, same formula, but it works in so many great ways because you're getting behind all four of these women.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to watch. And that brings us to our final match, but we do have a super chat to kick us off. Toledo Channel dropping 40 rupees. He says, Oba retains, Ridge feuds, has a feud with Ridge versus Andre Chase for NXT title. Toledo Channel, I love you. I appreciate your super chat. I disagree heavily. Oba does not retain, and I definitely don't want to see Andre Chase versus Ridge Holland for the World Championship. We finally
No.
got over the hump of a bad
That's
world title
crazy.
feud, and at this point, I'm just gonna say it. I think this is gonna be the riskiest and the boldest decision, the boldest prediction. But my guys, let me just throw this out there. Trick Williams don't need the world title. He's on his way to the main roster. He should be on his way to the main roster. Obafemi, I love you, bro. And I know they're probably not calling you up to the main roster yet. And we're probably going to get you and Hikuleo, which, by the way, my true prediction is that Oba retains and we get Hikuleo to confront him. However, deep down inside, I just really, really, really want to see my boy Jay Malachi, aka Javon Evans. I love this kid, and he's a young Jeff Hardy in my opinion. He's a risk taker. He's absolutely great when it comes to the moves and his passion. And dude, I'm gonna pick Javon Evans for the sake of being bold and risky and funny and silly and just throwing it out there and trying to manifest it. But deep down inside, Obafemi wins, gets confronted by Hikuleo to end the night. Which I actually don't even know if this is gonna end the night. So after the match, I should say.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I don't hate that prediction at all. I'm actually going to this is going to be very bold and very shocker. Yeah, I'm actually going to take Javon here. I'm in agreement with you here, Ango. I think Javon is I don't know what it is, and I was saying it to Phil yesterday. But so here's the thing: when you can get somebody like me to personally connect with somebody, I think you're doing a really good job, because I personally have a very hard time connecting with people as is. And Javon Evans, again, I don't know what it is. He just feels like you're talking to one of your friends, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the coolest things about him is like, oh, I'm talking to my homie right here, and we're having a conversation. That's what Javon Evans reminds me of. I think this kid is bound to be one of WWE's biggest stars down the line, for sure. And you compared him to Jeff Hardy. And I would agree with that. I would also compare him to, and go as far as to say, when we look at later down the line, somebody like Randy Orton, who I think is going to hold a lot of longevity in WWE. So I'm going to be bold here with Yango, and I'm going to say Javon Evans. And maybe you have Hikuleo cost Obafemi, and you let him make like a really big shockwave through the system.
Okay. Phil. Oh, I can't hear Phil.
Hey, Phil.
I'm
Phil.
going with Oba.
All right, now I can hear Phil.
Come on. Damn it.
And now we can't hear
Come
him
on.
again.
I don't know what's going on. We got to figure that out. But I'm going with an Oba retention.
With who?
God damn it.
All right, Phil, you are completely like screwed at the moment. So end the leave the call and join back.
Difficulties.
All right, let's see if we can get Phil's final prediction.
Yeah, we got this.
Phil, what's going on, Phil?
Can you guys hear me, please?
Yes.
Yeah, now we hear you.
Okay. All right. What I was saying before, technology just loves to hate me, and now I'm very bright apparently. I'm going with Oba retaining. I lost my entire train of thought. I'm going with him. I know it might sound like the easy pick to do, Obafemi, but the fact of the matter is, I still think that with Trick Williams, he needs to be called up. He's done with NXT. I don't think he really has anything to do with NXT anymore. Javon, he'll have his time. He'll have everything when it comes down to getting championships in the grand scheme of things. But I think Obafemi does win, and I think you have that Hikuleo, stare down at the end of the night, or however you want to go about it, depending on wherever this falls on the card. I think that just makes the most sense. I mean, Hikuleo has been apparently ready to get to NXT for the longest time since, training at the PC, and I think you just make that happen. So I think Hikuleo confronts Oba to end the night, and Oba Femi is still your NXT champ.
Cool. I like it.
Easy.
But that's not it all. That's not all, boys. Because I saved the best for last, and there was a specific reason why I saved this for last. I know Billy will probably just go and go on a long-winded rant about this. But I said it earlier in the stream, guys. The family, there's a little bit of a conspiracy that Billy has. Yesterday, it kind of looked like, holy shit, this actually could be the case. So, Billy TKO, we got the family versus Dark State. The floor is yours. Share your theory, and then we'll make our prediction.
So yeah, I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna give my prediction first, and I'm gonna go ahead and say Dark State is going to win, but they're going to win in a very shocking fashion, because what is going to happen is at the end of the match, Stax is going to turn 1000% on Tony here. You're going to get Stax joining Dark State, feuding with the family, and that will be the way that Tony will find his way up into the main roster. Stax will be able to find his way as a leader because, again, he's the heir to the throne of what Tony was, and now he's had to create his own family because his family has betrayed him. They don't trust him anymore, all of these different things. So ultimately, this is just very quick, very easy. Stax 1000% is going to finish off the night alongside Dark State and turning on Tony and the family. Easy enough.
That's why I wanted Billy to have the floor, ladies and gentlemen, because initially when he told me this, I wasn't feeling it. But thankfully, NXT did something yesterday that sold me on it. Dark State is winning this match, and Stax will be revealed as the leader of Dark State. And yep. I think Billy said it best last week where he says it's kind of like a sink or swim situation for Stax.
It is.
And I made the argument that I don't know how I feel about them breaking up the family, but Tony D'Angelo with Luca Crucifino and Ariana Rizzo or whatever her name is, I think that works on the main roster. Stax being the leader of Dark State, 1000% works for me now. Yesterday, the one thing I wanted to see was I wanted to see Stax in a different light. Yesterday I saw it. I saw it. It took a while, but yesterday I saw it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I picked Dark State with Stax being revealed as the leader. He had that insight on them. And good luck. Breaking up.
I'm shooting from the hip here.
It's tough.
I agree with you guys completely.
Yeah.
I agree with you guys completely. I think you have to go with Dark State here. I think Dark State winning just makes the most sense. But when Stax was pitched to be the leader from Billy, like you, Ango, I didn't really notice or see what Billy was seeing at the time.
Yeah.
Then as you continuously go through the motions and see how Stax has been acting throughout the video packages that we've seen with the family, and how and it was not Tony's call to do this whole parking lot situation with Dark State and how all that came about, I'm like, man, they're setting something up huge for Stax. And the thing is, this is Stax's opportunity to really show what he is about. If this theory that Billy cooked up here is true,
yeah,
I love it. I think you got to go with Dark State, and Stax being the leader makes so much sense now that we see it in front of our eyes.
Yeah, and for all the people that are Christians out there in the world, this weekend is Easter, and right now we are amidst Holy Week. And I'm a Catholic, and I say this, and I'll talk about it on the show because Friday is Good Friday, right? And Good Friday is like, it's such a, I don't want to speak like religious to everybody, but my point that I'm making is, if you know the story of Jesus Christ and Judas turning on him, that is something that everybody talks about. And in pro wrestling, somebody, I can't remember where I heard this from on a podcast, but they said whenever there's a heel turn and somebody deceives somebody, you know, in professional wrestling, it's obviously not going to have the same impact as like Jesus, right? You know what I mean? But,
Right. Yeah. Obviously.
but
Right.
the thing is, when you do it, you want to hate their guts, right?
Yes.
And
That's the
so
purpose.
when I heard this, and I think of like when I think of Staggs turning on Tony, that look that he gave us yesterday on camera, where it's just like he knew that he was turning on him. And I just think that's something that WWE has. It's a very big risk that they're taking if they do it. It's a very, very big risk, but it completely changes the rest of NXT, because now it's going to be sink or swim for Dark State. Did he really make the right decision? You know,
It is.
and that's
It really is.
one of the things I really wanted to point out. It's like, you got to do this turn to the point where we hate your guts. And I always thought that was an interesting analogy, and that's why I wasn't trying to bring religion into it. But, you know, Judas turned on Jesus, and it's one of those things, man, where like people's reaction, you watch a Jesus movie and you see it like angers you, you know, but it had to happen. It was the thing that had to happen. And so, you know, maybe this is the thing that has to happen in professional wrestling. I don't know. It's an interesting theory. Dark State wins. Stacks is the leader of the group, and we'll see how they go about it. And yeah, shout out to Billy for that one.
Oh man, no! Shout out to the Ango Show, because we're just over here cooking up our own theories, seeing what works, and just so happen to be right sometimes.
We'll see if you're right, buddy. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's live stream, April 16th, 2025. Make sure you guys follow Billy and Phil. Phil, where can they find you?
Well, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know. I gotta figure everything out. But thank you guys so much. You guys can follow me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Phil We Met. This has been a load of fun. I am so ready for this weekend. I'm so ready for all the festivities, Stand and Deliver, WrestleMania weekend. It's gonna be a blast. If you're celebrating, have a good time. If you're in Vegas, have a great time. I'm ready. I'm just ready for all of this. But thank you guys. Follow me everywhere at Philly Met.
Awesome. Make sure you guys follow him. Billy TKO, where you at, bruh?
I'm everywhere. I'm on Twitter. It's Billy DTKO on Twitter, though. Let's remember that. Everywhere else, Billy TKO. Feel free to give me a follow, whether that be on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Definitely. I'm doing watch-alongs for all WWE events this upcoming weekend. And so yeah, you guys should definitely pull up. Come check out the stream. You never know who you're going to see in the stream, whether it be Phil, whether it be whether it be my good friend Ango here, or you know, even whether it be my own personal friends. You never know.
Awesome. Make sure you guys follow Billy as well. My name is Ango, at Ango everywhere. NJPW on TikTok, Twitter, this, that, blah, 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 blah. If you can't find me, then I'm not doing a good enough job. I always say that. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.